Good evening, folks. Hopefully you can hear me. Things are going to look a little bit different tonight. Different studio. I'm in Kansas City, shooting from the studio of Jason Tracy Photo. If you want to check that out, jasontracyphoto.com. Has been nice enough to set me up with this background, a little bit different scenario. So we're going to talk about all your questions. Make sure if you're live on the stream now as it happens, hit those question marks before your question. Helps me pick them out of the stream. And I will start with my observations and we'll go from there. So before we do all that, I just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody. Thanks for jumping on here. That was a tough game to watch. And I know it's a time of year when you have your family around and everything. And it's a good time. So thanks for taking a few minutes to check out this stream. And we'll talk a little bit of football before everybody can move on and enjoy their holiday. This team. Where are you going to go with this team? They're up, they're down. They give you a little bit of joy, a lot of pain. But, you know, you saw a progression, I thought, and a lot of takeaways, starting with the DBs. As I look at my notes here, let me get all these up. Looking at the notes, the DBs, obviously, when you're starting two rookies, you're asking for a couple of problems. And we talked last week about what you're going to do with Doug Baldwin. And obviously Doug Baldwin showed up tonight and you saw what he's capable of against younger guys that don't have the experience to combat what he does. And that's really what it comes down to. Tyler Lockett, a couple of really nice catches as well. And here's the thing, especially late down the stretch there, you can get upset with some of that coverage if you want, but really the guys were in position. They're close to being able to make a play, though they weren't able to in the end. And that comes down to the little bits. Physically, they were there. They were able to run with them. And I think that's probably the difference between what you saw tonight from Ward and Tremon Smith versus what you would have seen. Obviously, Fuller can't, with that hand, it's difficult to run with anybody. And we know Scandrick can't run with these guys. He's just physically not that young anymore. He doesn't have that capability. So it puts him in a bad situation to begin with. So I can understand why they try to give it a shot, but it's a tough place to go in the second loudest stadium in the NFL and try to play a couple of rookies against a savvy veteran quarterback and two guys that are physically known to be great route runners and a real test for your defense. Joe Swift, thanks for the donation. Appreciate that. Fire Sutton out of a cannon. Yeah, you can understand that. I will say this, though. When I take a look overall, and I'm pulling the stats up right now, on the whole, if you would have told me that this defense, this Bob Sutton defense, was going to hold Chris Carson to, looks like 4.3 yards per carry for an entire ball game, I would have told you were crazy. So I have to give them credit. And they weren't bashful with it. 27 carries for Carson. We knew this was going to be their bread and butter, and this is what they were going to go to. So for them to be able to withstand that kind of punishment was a good sign. And I think that it's something they can feed on for later, because when they had to do it, they were able to do it and at least slow them down. Now, the Seahawks were dedicated, and I think really the difference was what Russell Wilson was able to do in the pass game, making those plays up. But between his runs and a couple of really nice long pass plays, that was the difference for them. Because if they were just going to continue to pound the rock over and over and over, the Chiefs were doing enough, I think, to slow them down. And when you look at the balance between the offense and the defense, you saw a lot of missed opportunities on the offensive side. And I think it stood out to me a little bit more tonight because it wasted some of what the defense did well. They got some stops. They put you in a position to be able to take the lead here in the second half. And the offense wasn't able to capitalize. And that's part of the problem as well. Ryan Gordon, thanks for your donation. I appreciate that. We did not have any offense play fast enough when they needed in the fourth quarter. Bad calls for much of the game. I won't say bad calls. I like the balance that they had in the beginning of the game with the run and the pass. Obviously, when you're trying to move the ball, running 3 consecutive run plays, third down is a passing down for a reason. Throw the ball. But I think what that allowed them to do is have a little bit more grind on the Seattle defense. And I think you saw that some late. You saw Wagner tired a little bit. You saw them moving around, breathing hard, and that's a good thing. I think what you saw the second to last drive where Patrick was able to move them down the field was a result of some of that fatigue that you build up over the course of a football game. And that's really important for a team like this because you have to rely on every edge that you can get because clearly you're outmanned personnel-wise. I think we saw what we've seen lately from this team, in that Ford had a couple of plays in the run game that were problematic, but got after the ball, put pressure, collapsed the pocket. Chris Jones collapsed the pocket. Justin Houston was in there doing his thing. Got home. I think he ended up with a half sack statistically, officially, but he was providing pressure. The front did what it needed to do. I thought they were a little bit better attacking the gaps. I thought Noddy played well again, enough, especially for him to make that kind of presence. So overall, I thought you saw a little bit of a progression against the run, especially from the defense, enough that they should have been able to put up enough points to win this ballgame, in my opinion. And I think some of the big takeaways on the offensive side of the ball, I thought they ran really well. Overall, if you would have told me, or if I would have told you, ask yourself this. If I would have told you that Damien Williams would almost double Chris Carson's yards per carry, I think that would have been surprising for most folks. It surprised me. He ran the ball well. The screen game was working fairly effectively. Where they got in trouble is trying to develop the longer routes and let Patrick sit in the pocket, because Eric Fisher struggled is probably a really nice way to put it tonight. That was the key. Obviously, a couple of I think, penalties, false starts from Jeff Allen. He was getting pass rushed really well tonight, too. So you had half of the line collapsing. Schwartz is still not 100% on that knee that popped up last week. So you saw him give up a few outside rushes as well. When that's happening, you can't wait that long. I thought Reed was a little slow to make an adjustment to try to bring some of those routes in closer to line of scrimmage, get those drags going. With Wagner patrolling the middle, that's a little bit tough. He's really their only linebacker that can cover very well, but he does cover a lot of ground. I would have liked to see them go to the slant game a little bit faster, and definitely more often, because I think the biggest slant play that you saw was a drop from Kelvin Benjamin in the end zone. Unfortunately, that's kind of his MO from Buffalo. Can't say that that's too surprising. So you saw him make that play, make that drop, and come back and make a play, make a nice catch on the next play, but unfortunately he was out of bounds. So that was a wasted set of downs there, and that's something you can't give up against a quality team. I think overall, a lot of folks, I see all kinds of frustration in the chat, and I don't blame any of you. That's completely fair. And somebody else made a donation that I missed, and I appreciate that, Sadiq. It's more of broken plays and missed tackles during pivotal moments. It is. Situational football, they have been struggling with. You see the primetime game thing with Mahomes. I think what you take away from his game tonight is that the collapse of the pocket sets him up, that he's more and more relying as the season goes on his arm ability. And his base is getting worse. His feet are getting worse because he's under so much fire. Now, he was a guy, when he came out of college, we knew he was going to have to change his whole footwork pattern and be able to deliver a strong base. And that's why you saw in the preseason why those long passes were 60, 70 yards. Now he's making big plays, but it's a lot of Tyreek making up for that. A lot of other guys making plays after the catch, and that's because he doesn't have the base to throw from. So I want to see them try to get him back to basics, get his base back under control in the next game. You can't overlook it. And we should probably talk about the overall thing. They made no progress this week. They lost no ground this week. At the end of the day, they're exactly back where they were in terms of the standings a week ago. With the Chargers loss, that helped. With everything that went on, the Eagles beating Houston, at the end of the day, they're right back where they were. They're still in control of their future. They need to win at home in Arrowhead against the Raiders, and they have the number one seed. It's all on them. At the end of the day, that's what's got to get done. And you have to feel good about that matchup, but it's also something that goes to show you anybody in this league can win any day. And that's really what it comes down to. It's hard to not take them for granted after what you've seen from the Raiders over the season, but this is critical. And this was something I was talking pre-game with some folks on Twitter that I was really interested to see if this team could put the nail in the coffin, because they had this opportunity with circumstances leading up to them being able to take number one outright tonight had they pulled this game out. They weren't able to do it. Obviously, there's youth on both sides of the ball in certain positions, and there's problems on both sides of the ball in some positions. I thought Wiley played better at the right guard, but I thought Allen had a setback in terms of his performance from the left guard. That slows down the whole offense. Didn't see a whole lot of production. Obviously, the miscue by Conley. Robinson made a nice play at the end, but he had made some problems earlier. Robinson continues to be up and down. It's pretty frustrating because I like his potential. Okay, we broke 400. Welcome, everybody, to the chat. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Another contribution. Hey, Cool Mars, I appreciate that. I will keep going if you'll keep going. So we'll be here one way or the other. I am going to do a couple more videos this week. They might be more live setups than the pre-recorded, but I will look at the film a little bit after the holiday. I'm not going to be in a rush, so it's going to be a different schedule this week. But I just want everybody to have a good holiday and not worry about football for a bit. But I'll take care of that as we go through. Another one, thank you. David Angel, I appreciate that. Patrick Mahomes equals Aaron Rodgers. Eventually, I think you're probably right, but tonight I'm not so sure. Again, I think Mahomes is trying to do what he can do, and I think he's trying to become the best quarterback that he can. Some of that refinement has to come. There are a couple of chances he took tonight. One where he was clearly in the grasp. He could have just let the ball go and just tucked it and gotten sacked and been done. Instead, he flips it out there. It could have been an intentional grounding call, in my opinion. It could have been picked off for a 6 is what it could have been. I think that's more problematic. There's a good bit of never quit on a play in him, but there's also sometimes where he steps over the line. And that's going to be a refinement as he is a professional and as years go by. It's not something that's going to jump in there right away. So before we jump into the questions, I'm not going to take it too long tonight. We are recording the podcast as well, so keep an eye out for that on Locked On Chiefs. Again, brought to you by Jason Tracy Photo tonight in this studio, so thank you. Final thoughts. This defense is in a position where this kind of performance is probably what you're going to see the rest of the season. You're not going to see a big turnaround come playoffs. The cold weather isn't going to help them change into a better defense, especially as injuries take their toll. We'll see what happens with Fuller. I thought Fuller might go tonight, and he didn't, so we want to see what comes of that. The Parker scratch, I liked what they did. I think I told you guys last week that the best spot for Eric Berry right now is in the back of the defense directing traffic, and you saw Dan Sorensen play his spot up near the line of scrimmage tonight. You saw Eric Berry play deep most of the evening, and I think that's what you had to have because it takes full advantage of his knowledge to be able to spread it around to the younger DBs, and that's critical. In fact, that long run by Wilson at the end of the game is why you saw he be the last line of defense, and I think that's going to continue, and it's going to be something important to continue. As it goes on, that's got to change. Someone else has to step up so that Eric can get back. Once he feels good, get back to his self being close to the line of scrimmage, being that robber role where he can affect more of the field than he can as a free safety. Another contribution, Shrimp Goat. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Chris Conley one-handed that ball like a chicken wing. Yeah, it was easy to address. And here's the thing. Pat Mahomes did the same thing when he broke out later in the game. Oh, yeah, I should tell you guys. Tonight's beer, Snow and Tell, one of my favorites. I cannot get it in Colorado. So I'm enjoying some of these tonight. Thank you, Boulevard. Yeah, unfortunately, some of those things, some of the details are starting to get lost, like tucking the ball, like controlling it. Some of those little deals are what bites a team like this, a young team that is up and down and inconsistent. That's the biggest problem, the inconsistency that you're going to see from a team that is cobbled together on the offensive line, that is young at DB, that is really, really light on talent at linebacker. Although I will say this, I thought Dorian O'Daniel put in a good day's work. I did see him get beat on a play or two, but most of the time I thought he was in position. I thought he played the run better than he has, and I think that's going to be very important going forward. So we'll see where it comes from. Another contribution. Thank you, Dean. When was the last time a team went to the Super Bowl with this bad a defense? Last season. For all that they were touted up to, I think they gave up 586 yards in the Super Bowl last year and won. So it's not the limiting factor that it could have been in the past. You know me, I want to see defense played well. I want to see the ball run well. Certain things in this era are leading away from doing that. And unfortunately, you're seeing teams, that's why you see games like this, and you see games like when the Chiefs play the Rams, where when you're throwing so much, you're stopping the clock, you're allowing the other team more possessions, you're scoring more points. If anything else, the Chiefs running the ball a little bit more tonight allowed the Seahawks not to have the ball when they did have those incomplete passes, and the Seahawks continue to run the ball, they would have scored more had you given them more possessions. That's important. So this tide is turning. And if the Chiefs can continue, if they can get to the point where they can keep some teams, play better matchups, play more aggressive defense. I think overall this defense was better tonight than it has been in weeks past because they were more aggressive. It's something that can pay off for them down the line. We will see if they actually do it or not. Dean, thank you for your contribution. David, I appreciate that as well. Okay, we're getting close. Start sending your questions. If you've sent a question already, I haven't seen them. There's just too many comments in here. So send it again now. Give me that 3 question marks in the beginning, and I'll start from here. Watts, it looked like I'm waiting to hear from him. A lot of questions about Watts. I don't have any information, but I thought Lucas made really one of the blunders of the game by being over-aggressive, and I think that's something they've seen from him in the past. And for those of you that have been asking why Jordan Lucas isn't playing more, I think it's because of those tendencies. Lacks a little bit of discipline in his assignments. I think he's a little over-aggressive, and I think the staff is worried about that. I think by now he probably would have played out of it, but I think that's where the staff's coming from. Why was Parker not out there? Coach's decision. They left him out on purpose. Did I like the hurry up? Yeah, I did. I think that puts pressure on the defense, especially defense that had been previously taxed with a lot of run earlier in the game. I thought that was a good move. Did you see Noddy last TD trucked over the guard? Yeah. And Noddy played a good game. I mean, he was getting pressure in the pass game as well, collapsing that pocket. He got inside and broke down a double team at one point. I think what we're seeing is Noddy is a younger Chris Jones. He's never going to be that kind of pass rush, but he's much more than just a run-stopping nose tackle. And I think right now he looks like he was the pick of that draft class. We will see how it goes down the line. Is Tyreek okay? I don't think he's 100%, but I think he walked that off pretty well. What we find out the rest of the week is going to tell us if he's going to be good to go going forward. So we're going to pay particular attention to that. More questions here. Oh, scrolling too fast. Okay. Do you think we'll be okay with Damien Williams? I think they will. And I'll tell you why, because I think Andy Reid likes his explosiveness. I think one of the reasons Andy doesn't like to run the ball is because he feels like it's slower to exploit a defense. Andy likes to see a matchup and take care of it and get as much as he can out of it. And I think the more explosive, the more speed-oriented run of Damien Williams, and he's shown more power, I think that combination is something that he likes. I wish Darryl would have been available. Looks like he hurt his hamstring by last account. I'm looking forward to seeing him play more, and hopefully we'll get more out of him as well. Both starting safeties out for Seattle. How big of a disappointment was Kelsey? You know, they were still bracketing him. You saw Wagner on him a lot. He had safety attention. I think that was by design. I think the bigger issue is that they weren't able to exploit the outsides in lieu of that attention that was all down the middle. I think that was the bigger problem. Mason, Merry Christmas to you. Next question. Why not spread them out more often or even hurry up more often? I like the hurry up idea. The pace is something that plays well for Mahomes. I think Mahomes gets rhythmic quite often. I think that helps his game. The spread was because your tackles were struggling. The left side in particular, the whole left side of the line was struggling in pass rush. And if the Seahawks choose to keep guys in and double those B gaps, you're going to have more guys in Mahomes' face. And that's the franchise. Mahomes goes down, this team's gone. You cannot win a game with Chad Henne. As much as I like him in the film room to help Pat Mahomes, he's not a quarterback that can win playoff games for this team. So you can't take a chance, in my opinion, on getting him hurt. Why nothing on Brett Veach? Lucas Kinsey, good question. Why is all the blame on Sutton and not on Veach? Mostly because Veach is taking over from Dorsey, who made some serious miscalculations. Brett has made a couple as well. I think Speaks was overdrafted for sure. But he also outlined, Matt Derrick talked about it. He outlined initially that this was a 2 or 3 year rebuild for the defense. Just first year in. I'm sure they have more plans, and I'm sure they see that they probably miscalculated the combination of Hitchens and Sutton. I think the coordinator is going to be a big question about, can you take the advantages that your personnel that you already have and use it going forward and add to it, rather than trying to adapt everyone to your plan. I think that's going to be impressive. Aaron Morrow, Scandrick on Baldwin would have been a disaster. Baldwin is an expert route runner. I think the youth gave them a better chance physically to keep up with him. Scandrick would have been outmatched by a long shot. Is it Sutton's last year, Smokey one? Good question. I don't know. I have a feeling Andy's going to be loyal. I think really, and Seth brought this up on the podcast the other day, I think the only way that Bob Sutton's really gone is if he retires. And he might. There's going to be pressure. There's going to be a number of things that want to get him out of there. Keep asking, folks. I'm still scrolling. I apologize. I will get there. First game of the year didn't. Yeah, Nathan, that's a good point. Do you think there plays a Steeler game earlier this year? We could. The Steelers have changed. Definitely, the Chiefs have as well. So young in that position. We'll see what the secondary can hold up with, really. Do the Chargers and Seahawks play the same defense? No. The Seahawks don't have that edge rush as good as Deion Jordan, of all people, look tonight. He's no Ingram. He's no Bosa. So that's a severe advantage that the Chargers have. They do have athletic guys in the secondary, but no one like Derwin James. Quite honestly, the Chiefs should have been able to exploit this defense a lot better than they did. And again, you saw Mahomes with the pocket collapsed, unable to deliver the ball accurately. You saw some underthrows. You saw several overthrows. There's at least 2 touchdowns he left on the field tonight because he overthrew the ball. So there are some of those issues that need to be corrected. You can't stop looking for Mahomes to progress, even though he's this good. So don't take the foot off the pedal there either. Do I feel Dan Sorensen should be benched? Honestly, and this hurts me to say, you guys know how I feel about Dan Sorensen. I think he played more assignment safe, more correct assignments tonight than we've seen out of Ron Parker lately. And that someone we've even seen out of Eric Murray. Eric Murray is still challenged, I think, mentally. Read and react, I think, is still an issue for him, coming from a corner to a safety. I like Sorensen where he was tonight, I'll tell you that. I like Sorensen up near the line of scrimmage. I do not like him at free safety in the back. I think that would have been a disaster. And I think this was probably a very good combination in terms of maximizing what you have. I know a lot of folks want to see Jordan Lucas. I just don't think that he's ready to be the last line of defense. So keep that in mind. I do want to see Dorian O'Daniel play more than Sorensen if that's what it comes to. So when you play split back there in cover 2 looks, cover 4 looks, Sorensen back there is a little bit safer. I don't like it. I would like to see Lucas or Murray or somebody, should be Ron if he could stay sound, play that other deep safety, because they're going to have to use more cover 2 if they're going to try to stop some of these passing games. Next question. Oh, I see a lot of you getting shot down for cussing in the chat. Take it easy now. YouTube will just throw you out of here eventually. So beginning the season, offense had all kinds of motion to confuse the defense. Will they bring that back for the playoffs? I think they will. I think they're holding it for the playoffs specifically. That's why you haven't seen it lately. Also, that puts a lot of stress on one particular player in Tyreek Hill that is a little bit injured. So I think that's part of it as well. That's always a factor. Make sure I get that one. Who's to blame for this loss? It's a mixed bag. I thought the defense played better. At the end of the day, I thought the offense blew more execution that they were able to take care of. I mean, don't get me wrong. The balance of this team is 75% offense and 25% defense, because their defense just isn't that talented. So the offense has to carry 3/4 of the load, in my opinion, because of how good they are versus the defense. I don't think they did that tonight. I think they can do it next week. And I think if they get their act together and they get on the same page and maybe get that bye week where they can rest up a little bit, I think that gives them another chance. Okay, we're winding down here, folks. Couple more questions, and we will call it a night and have a Merry Christmas. One came in from Aaron Morrow. Thank you again. I don't have any updates on LDT. I know he did some walkthroughs and out of the boot, supposedly, but I have no evidence of that, and I haven't talked to anyone who feels he's coming back anytime soon. I know Irving practiced, but obviously they didn't play him tonight, and I think maybe that was situational. Maybe he warmed up. I'll have to ask the reporters that were there. I did not see anything from him warm-up wise. Do we beat the Raiders? That's a good question. Adam Daughtry. I think you do. It's one thing to beat them out in Oakland, but coming into Arrowhead, this is a must-win game. I mean, this is what the season comes down to. This Chiefs team on the road in the playoffs is not going to go very far. This is a must-win game, and I feel like Andy Reid is able to motivate his players enough. Can they execute? Can they focus enough? Do these two rookie DBs in Smith and Ward, do they take enough away from the Seahawks game to bounce back next week against a receiving core that is not as talented and play better? I think they probably do. That's what I'm going to look for. Will Veach be able to find run stuffers? Do they win against the Raiders? Okay. I get it that you guys are ready to move on. I appreciate that. Yeah, I do like the blitz. They do need to blitz more often, more than Bob likes to anyway. But again, that's a Bob tendency. So it looks like there's several more questions about the Raiders, and I'm glad you guys are ready to move on because that was a tough game to watch, and I know you're disappointed. So I want you to focus on having a good Christmas. Focus on the Raiders. I think this is a game that the Chiefs have to win, and I think they can win. I think they will have their holiday like we all will, come back refreshed and be ready to roll. I hope you guys have a great Christmas. I certainly plan to. I'll have more for you, probably another live session midweek after the holiday, and we'll see what else we can get done. Thank you for all of your time and all your donations tonight, and I appreciate all of you. Merry Christmas. I'll talk to you before Happy New Year, but that too. And thanks again for your time. Have a good night.